What does recovery from a fatigue-related condition mean to you? So this video is a recap of an Insta Live that my colleague Jo and I did a little while ago. And in it, we're inviting you to really get curious about what recovery means to you personally. We'll share a few of our ideas and offer some coaching prompts to help you really dig into that question. What does recovery look and feel like for you? So do take your time with this video, look after your energy levels, take pauses whenever you're ready. So I'm Amy and I'm an embodiment coach and educator. And my colleague Jo is a neuro-linguistic programming coach. And we both specialise in working with people with fatigue conditions. We've also had our own personal experience of chronic fatigue, along with chronic pain myself, and Jo with dysautonomia and POTS. So to get us started, asking you, Jo, what comes up for you with that question? What does recovery mean? What are some of your thoughts?
So recovery can mean different things to different people. So it may mean returning to your life like it was before you had chronic illness or burnout, whatever the fatigue-related condition may be. Or you may envisage a different life for yourself once you have recovered or almost recovered. Or it may mean getting to a point where you are over the acute, debilitating stages of fatigue. So you're living an okay or good life, even if that means intermittently you still experience some symptoms. So those are just three possible examples of what recovery may mean. It could mean something completely different to you. There's no right or wrong answer. What's important is it's meaningful and makes sense to yourself. So in social media, there are many fully covered, fully healed stories, which is brilliant because they give us some hope and some inspiration and some insight in how to start overcoming some of these fatigue-related conditions. But there are also other realities going on of what recovered is to different people. And this, well, it was an Instagram live event. The audio quality wasn't very good on my behalf, so we're doing a retake now on YouTube. But we wanted to shed some light on other possibilities that exist for you to consider in relation to this question, what does recovery mean to you? So some people who are recovered or almost recovered may be living slightly different lives going forward so they can maintain their wellness because their lives weren't sustainable before. And that may resonate with some of you. Additionally, there is a community of people that are living well with their fatigue-related conditions. Now, I consider myself to be in this category. As Amy said in the introduction, I have dysautonomia stroke POTS. I was diagnosed in 2017. And the main symptom I experienced was a debilitating fatigue. I couldn't even get up a flight of stairs without needing to lie down. We're not going to dwell on that because it's not relevant to this conversation. We're going to come forward to present date. And I'm very thankful to say I live a good life. But I'm not fully recovered because I still can get symptoms. Thankfully, the vast majority of the time, I'd say my condition is in remission. If that's a medically correct term for this or not, I don't know. and my activity level is high, and I do naturally pace myself, but if I overdo it, if I'm dealing with overwhelming stress, or if I get a virus, my symptoms can crop up. Now, I use that as an example because some people might say, well, she is recovered. She's living a very productive life and she's happy with her life. Other people may say she's not recovered because she still has to pace herself, otherwise symptoms return. And just to add a little side note there, regardless of fatigue-relating conditions, there is an argument we should all be pacing ourselves regardless to maintain wellness and well-being. But the only person that definition of recovery the only person that definition is correct for is myself. So it's for you to decide what recovery means to you, that is aligned with your values and beliefs and makes sense for yourself. Once you have some clarity over what this is, you can start to set some goals to work towards and achieve. Just to add a few more points here, like I said, myself and Amy were keen to shed some light on some other realities that exist of what recovery can be. Just a moment, I made a few points. If we are mainly hearing fully recovered stories, we can feel like we are failing potentially if we're not there already. Plus, there can be a pressure to be fully healed or completely recovered. Feeling this pressure can take some of our energy in a negative capacity. Once we free ourselves from this pressure, we can help on our energy availabilities. We can feel more motivated, and we can sometimes recognize what we have achieved already and celebrate some small wins and the joy this can bring with it. And inadvertently, by removing this pressure, we may be enabling ourselves to continue on our recovery journey. And my final point is, your goal may be to be fully healed or fully recovered, which is brilliant, but it may be worth having some smaller, intermittent goals as you go along, such as somebody who is in a very new point in their recovery journey. They may be looking to achieve some stability in their energy levels so they feel like they're coping better. Then maybe moving forward to maybe socializing again or returning to work part-time. And just, you can see how having a series of goals can help you along the way. So that's been quite a bit of talking from me. So I'll hand it back to Amy for now.
Oh, thank you, Jo. That was really insightful, and it gave people lots of examples and a lot of food for thought. So I'll add to this some of my ideas as well. And again, these are very personal and therefore where I am at the moment. These things might change in the future as well. But I feel firstly that this is such an important conversation to have, because we can see things so black and white, so recovered or not recovered. And this can create a lot of pressure, which isn't very good for our nervous system, which is generally dysregulated as part of a fatigue condition. So this is a big stressor that we can place on ourselves. It can also create force where we're trying to push ourselves towards recovery, and we might feel that we're not doing well enough at this. And that can be very disheartening, and again, is a huge stressor on our already very overloaded systems. We can start comparing our lives to others, And also, we're not really enjoying the present moment when we're doing this. So we're missing out on the things that we can do if we're always sort of looking to that point and thinking, okay, things will be all right when, or this can happen when at this point in time. On the more, I suppose, sort of subject of, well, what does recovery mean? I find this a fascinating question, and I often really struggle at points to say, oh, well, where would I put myself? So I very thankfully don't have chronic pain anymore, which is wonderful. There was a point where that was so incredibly debilitating for me. And I was told by the medical establishment there wasn't anything that could be done. And I worked through that and did a lot of research, a lot of my own work. And I'm at the point now where I don't have chronic pain, which is absolutely wonderful. I might get little bits of symptoms from time to time, but I think it is that case of it's not chronic. So things will pass, and they tend to pass at a shorter rate than they used to. And I think this is something I like to tell a lot of my clients that I work with as well. Actually, celebrate shorter recovery times, celebrate shorter dips and crashes, because in my experience, that's a huge sign that things are improving. And it often is that the time spans of these things will keep shortening and shortening gradually over time. And this is something to celebrate. But it can be so easy due to the intensity and the feeling when we are in these states to be so disheartened rather than to come out of it and say, oh, wow, actually, that only lasted 2 days and that used to last 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever that might be. So I think there's that real sense of actually being able to enjoy your life as you live it. And philosophically speaking, like I do come from, I'm trained as a yoga teacher. And I think this idea of healing and recovery, I think even though our symptoms may go, just a simple part of being a human being is that there'll always be something that we're working on in life. So there'll always be some sort of challenge. And I don't say that's a horrible burden. Sometimes it can feel like it, but it's actually the nature of being human. It's the nature of living a life. There'll be inevitable challenges that life throws our way. And even if we woke up tomorrow without any symptoms, life would still throw some of those challenges our way. And a lot of the tools that we learn through recovery and through improving our health, our well-being, our symptoms, these are all tools for life. So we'll use them in different ways as those inevitable challenges come up. And also, even if we don't have symptoms, there might still be certain things that come up. So I can say, oh, I don't really have chronic pain anymore, but actually there's still times when my tendency to overdo things comes up. I still have various levels of fatigue at points in time, which I very actively manage. But again, they're not what they were and they don't disrupt my life. Yes, there's certain limitations and I'm pacing my energy, but also the fact that I didn't used to pace my energy is probably a key factor in why I became unwell in the first place. So the ability to pace, the ability to have reasonable expectations of myself, wasn't a skill set that I really had much of, that I was very good at before in life. So actually, this has very painfully, like literally and metaphorically speaking, taught me that lesson that I do need to pace my energy. Actually, it's not about being a superwoman or about being limitless. Actually, having certain limitations, being able to contain certain things is very, very healthy. Being able to tune into my body and to look after myself and my well-being is also incredibly healthy. And a lot of this comes into one of my approaches as a practitioner as well, where we're not looking at our symptoms as a pathology. So there may be an element of a pathology for you. You might have found that your symptoms were initially triggered by a virus or exposure to mold and infection, something along those lines. But over time, there's other elements that we're looking at. And often that term of cured or not cured really speaks to that pathology side of things. And actually, I believe that managing fatigue conditions and recovering from them, again, rebuilding your life in the way that feels right for you, it's not a pathology as such. It's about living a really full, wonderful human life, which by definition, that we are all human, isn't going to be perfect. We can't control everything. So it's often taking what we've got and making the best of it. And that I found is, sometimes very, very difficult to do because it's human that we want things to be different. But that's often the key to recovery. So it's making the most of your life wherever you are, and while still working towards your wellbeing goals as well. And when I was first diagnosed, that was one of the promises I made to myself. And in some ways, it felt paradoxical, but actually, I think it has been key to feeling better and for certain symptoms dissipating. But I basically said, okay, well, I'm going to do what I can to recover, whatever that means, but also I'm going to make sure that I make the most of the life that I have. And this, coming back to that sense, it was often a case of, okay, well, I'm not putting things off. It was often with a lot of adjustments, and after a certain point in time that I could do things. It wasn't wishing my life away, but actually making the most of what I could with what I had. And we can say this with so many elements of life as well. Things will never entirely go exactly our way, or they won't all the time. There might be certain points in time that they do. And also, when you get curious about that question, what does recovery mean to me? It often brings up a lot. So it'll often show you the things that you do truly miss about your old life, and actually some of the things that you could do with giving up. Maybe things that, as Jo mentioned before, they're part of, our common culture, but aren't really so helpful. And actually, when we get curious about that, we can sometimes see, well, actually, were we really designed to work 40 hours a week whilst bringing up a family, having an ideal relationship, spending good quality time with our friends and family members, being a valued member of our community? We actually look at these things and we're like, okay, 1 second, does this actually make sense? Is this reasonable? Or is this conditioning that we're being sold? And also, we can see there's almost an epidemic of burnout in certain areas, of people feeling exhausted or feeling like they're never doing enough, no matter how much they do. And if we look at that as that very human question, as that societal question, rather than a pathology, then we can come up with some really interesting answers, and we can start rewriting the script over what it is we want to do with our lives. So I'll stop talking there, as I could talk about these things all day. And the main goal of this session was to help you get curious about what recovery means to you. And to echo Jo from earlier, there is really no right or wrong answers here. We've shared some ideas here. We have no agenda to convince you of one thing or the other. It really is about you tapping into, okay, what does recovery mean to me? Noticing what comes up, and then finding things that feel helpful for you through that. So if you would like to give this a try, feel free to grab a pen and paper, or you might prefer to do it just by noticing what comes up for you. But I always invite people to firstly notice how their feet feel against the ground. And can you have a sense of sinking into the support of your chair? So noticing how the chair holds your weight. And taking a breath in through your nose and then sighing that out through your mouth. Noticing how you feel and then asking yourself that question. Okay, what does recovery mean to me? What does recovery mean to me? And try not to intellectualize it too much. So notice what comes up, even if it doesn't make complete sense. Might be a word or two, a feeling, might be something really clear, or nothing at all. And feel free, you might want to scribble that down, or you might prefer to sit with it for a moment. And then, if you'd like to, and feel free to pause the video here and come back to it. But you might also want to ask yourself, okay, what would recovery look like? What would I like to do? How would I like to spend my time? Again, see if anything comes up there. And there's no right or wrong answers. This is all ideas. And once you've got some of these ideas, you might want to take a look through them. And as Jo mentioned, there might be a little bit of goal setting here where you might think, actually, how can I have an element of this right now? Even if it's just a flavour of it, even if it's doing something with a lot of adjustments to meet you where you are. So I'll leave you there with that food for thought. I've added both mine and Jo's website, our Instagram links here in the bio. So do reach out. We'd absolutely love you to share what goes on for you. If you're interested in working with either of us at any point in time to dig into this or other topics deeper, then also get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Jo, before we wrap up?
No, so I always have to make sure I get close to the microphone. So that was brilliant. Thank you, Amy. And I just want to add a point. There were so many things I planned on saying, but naturally, as you start talking, things drop out. I started by saying I consider myself not to be fully recovered, but I live a good life. I just want to add into that, echoing what Amy said, a good life doesn't mean a perfect life. It is full of ups and downs. It is a human life, and it's learning to navigate those ups and downs. And part of the recovery journey from fatigue-related conditions, be it chronic illness, pain, or burnout, is, I believe, becoming more resilient to stress. And I feel part of it, which Amy has already explained, is learning how to navigate life in modern society as well. Just to leave you with those thoughts, because I never want to be somebody that's on social media projecting perfectionism, because that is absolutely not what I'm about. I'm very honest. But thank you for doing this, Amy. It's greatly appreciated. And to anybody that watches this, thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you for watching, everyone.